Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you my whole process for applying and getting jobs in bioinformatics. So this is the same process that I used when I got my first job in academia as a bioinformatics research associate. And it's also the process I've used more recently when applying for jobs in industry. Now, I wouldn't consider myself to be a careers expert by any means, but what I'm going to show you today is my tried and tested method, which I've refined over the last couple of years, and it's worked very well for me. So as well as this video, I've actually made some extra resources for you guys. So there's a cheat sheet which kind of summarizes everything we're going to go over. There's a resume and cover letter templates, and also a template for an Excel spreadsheet where you can track your job applications. Now, if you want to get any of these, I'll put a link in the description. If you click that link, I'll send those to you for free. This video I've split into 4 phases. I'll start by talking about the 3 main stages of the job search, which are the preparation phase, the application phase, and the interview phase. And then I'll also have a bonus section at the end where I give you some additional tips. So without further ado, let's get into the first section, which is the preparation phase. So the first thing I actually want to cover is mindset. And that's because I think a lot of the stress that comes from applying for jobs can be eased just from setting the right expectations. Job hunting is stressful, especially if you aren't seeing results or you're getting rejections. And I feel like, for me at least, giving myself permission to feel that way actually eases a lot of the stress, because if you expect it to be hard and it is hard, it's more manageable than if you expect it to be easy and it turns out to be really hard. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever received about job hunting was from Reddit, of all places. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I think I was scrolling through the Life Pro Tips subreddit, and someone said, if you're applying for jobs or looking to apply for jobs, give yourself at least 6 months. And so I've kind of always held that in my head ever since. So whenever I know I'm going to be looking for a job, for example, if I'm coming up to the end of a degree, then I'll start looking for jobs about 6 months before I'm expected to graduate. Now, 6 months may seem like a long time, and it is, but again, I feel like if we set the expectations that it's going to take a long time, it can only be a good thing, because we're not going to be disappointed if it ends up taking a long time, which it may do. So once your mindset is in the right place, the next step is to figure out what you actually want. What are you actually looking for? Now, this may seem like a pretty obvious thing, but I feel like it saves a lot of time downstream if you know exactly what you want. So what I mean by this is things like, what subfield of bioinformatics do you want to be in? Do you want to work in academia or industry? What level position do you want? So junior, senior, management. What location do you want to work? Are you open to moving? Do you want to work in person? Do you want to work remote or hybrid? What kind of compensation do you want? So I would think about these sorts of things. Make sure you've got a good idea of what you're actually looking for before we move on to the next stage. I'll also say that it's okay if you're not that sure of what you want to do. I think especially for you younger people out there who are maybe just graduating, you maybe don't have a really solid idea of what you want to do, and that's okay. That was actually the case for me when I graduated. I knew I wanted to be working in bioinformatics, but I didn't actually have like a specific space I wanted to be working. My focus was on getting in a position where I was going to be learning a lot from people around me, because when you're young, I feel like getting in an environment where you can learn a lot from the people around you is very valuable. Okay, so the last step in this first section is to create a resume. Now, your resume will look different depending on what stage in your career that you're at. However, you should always try and highlight your strengths. I don't want to go into too much detail on what to put in your resume, because it's going to vary vastly depending on who you are. But I have created a general outline which I've used, which worked well for me, which I think is a good starting point.
So I've created this template, and this is basically how I have structured my resume for the last 2 jobs I've had. So we're just going to quickly take you through this, and I'll actually send this template to you. I'll include it in that link in the description, so if you want to access this, I'll just send it to you for free if you click that link. But basically at the top, you put your name and contact details, so whoever included it, email, phone, LinkedIn and GitHub. I guess LinkedIn and GitHub are kind of optional. I think it's best to include them, because then on those sites you have kind of other information about yourself, so it will allow the employer to kind of dig into you a bit more if they want. What I would say is, like, don't include your address. The reason I say that is because if you're applying for jobs in different cities or different locations, and your address is maybe showing you even in a different country, then they may, decline your application purely because you don't actually live in that location. Like, even if you're willing to move somewhere else for the job, they may decline your application because your current address isn't where the office is. But if you're just applying for jobs in the same city, then it's fine to include your address. So the next section I have is like a personal summary. So it's quite common to have like a little paragraph at the top. So here you'll kind of include a bit about yourself, what you've been doing in your previous role. You'll highlight your key strengths, so your key skills, and then you'll also say like what you're looking for in terms of like the role and the kind of field. Next, what I do is I list my technical skills. So this includes things like programming languages, any bioinformatics tools, databases I've used, operating systems I've used, and then other technical skills. So there's all like the common ones like Microsoft Office and other stuff. But here you can include any other like bioinformatics stuff you've done. It's all relevant to put in this section. I then have a technical project section. So this is where I list projects I've been working on in previous employment and in like university projects as well. So university coursework or like the thesis project, those are all good to put here. Obviously, depending on the stage of your career, you're going to have different level of experience. So someone who's just graduated from university, in this section, just include like your university projects that you've worked on, or anything which you think would display your skills and make you more employable. Feel free to put it here. Employment history, so again, it kind of depends on what stage of your career you're at. So if you've never had a job before, then this section may not apply to you, but it would also be good to put like internships here if you've had an internship. After that, I list my education, so what degrees I've studied for, what institutions they're at, and then obviously like the level of study and the degree title. And then beneath that, I would list like any certifications, awards, or publications which I have. So actually, I'd have like a subsection for publications if I were you. And then at the bottom, I normally just say references available on request. So that's like a basic outline of how I would set it up. But as I said, I'm by no means a careers expert.
Okay, so to summarize that first section, firstly, you need to get your mindset right. Looking for jobs is hard, it can be stressful. You should give yourself at least 6 months for the whole process. Second thing, know what you're looking for. And the third thing is to create a strong resume. Okay, so now we've created our resume, we are now ready to start applying for jobs. So in this section, we're going to go over how to apply for jobs and increase leads, and also how to track your job applications, which is actually very important. So firstly, how did I apply for jobs? Well, when I was applying for jobs in bioinformatics, I used 3 main websites. I used LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and Indeed. Now, I'm not saying these are the only websites you can use, but for me personally, these were my favorite ones to use just due to functionality and ease of use. But if you prefer to use other ones, that's fine. I know some of these might not be available in other countries, so it's fine to use whatever you have at your disposal. But I'm going to take you through how to actually optimize these types of websites. So I think LinkedIn can be very useful when you're applying for jobs. So now I'm going to take you through a little guide on how to use LinkedIn, how to optimize it for getting results.
So here I'm going to show you how to set up your LinkedIn profile so that you can get more leads. And by leads, I just mean you'll get more people reaching out to you with opportunities for work. So with LinkedIn, you can set your profile to open to work. So if you go and click this blue button here under your name, and then you click finding a job, you can basically set some filters on what type of work you're looking for. So for the job title, whether you want to work on-site, hybrid or remote, the location, and then start date, etc. Now, I imagine some of you will be concerned about your current employer seeing that your LinkedIn profile is set to open to work. So you can actually set this thing at the bottom, which decides whether you want all LinkedIn members to see this, or you just want recruiters to see this. So if you are concerned about your current employer seeing you open to work, then just click recruiters only, and then click add to profile. I'm not going to do it because I'm currently not looking for work, so I'm going to discard. But yeah, just save those changes, and now you'll actually get people reach out to you with opportunities. So once I set my profile to open to work, I started getting messages like this from recruiters who were reaching out and asking if I was interested in certain positions. So it definitely helps to do this. I mean, it does get you opportunities.
Now we've set up our profile, the next step is to actually start applying.
So once you've set up your profile and you've set your status to open to work, you can actually start applying for jobs. So to do that, you go to the jobs tab and you go in the search bar, you just basically search for whatever you're looking for. So let's say you're looking for a role as a bioinformatics scientist. We also set the location, so you can set remote, you can set like a certain location. I'm just going to put New York. And then you basically just get this big list of jobs. So on the right hand side you've got like the job descriptions about the company, and then on the left you can just basically flick through different jobs. And to apply, you basically just click this apply button on any job, and then you can upload a resume or whatever. Another thing to note is you've also got extra like filtering options at the top, so experience level, the company, job type, on-site, remote, etc. This is all well and good, but one thing I wanted to show you was how to set alerts. So basically you can set email notifications, so whenever a new job becomes available on LinkedIn that matches some certain criteria, so maybe the job title, then you can get an email notifying you. And this will allow you to be one of the first people to apply for a certain job, which is important because a lot of these companies will hire someone as soon as they find the right person. They'll hire them, so being early to apply is a good thing. And if we just look at this in one example, there's already 130 applicants, so it can definitely benefit you. So to set up these job notifications, we go back to the jobs tab, and then on the left hand side you want to click job alerts. So we don't have any job alerts yet, but we can actually create one. We just do search for jobs, and again you want to type in, let's type in bioinformatics scientist again, and at the top here there's this toggle switch which says set alert. So if you toggle that on, you'll now get basically emails, and you can, if you click manage alerts down the bottom, you can set how often you want to receive these emails. So you can have it daily or weekly. You just basically click this pencil if you want to edit how often, so daily or weekly email, or you can get like text as well, I imagine.
So there I've just demonstrated how to do it on LinkedIn, but you can also set up email notifications on these other job sites such as Glassdoor or Indeed or any of the other ones you may be using. So on some of these job sites, there's the option to quick apply. So you can either quick apply or you can take the time and do like a manual application. So for quick apply, you upload your resume to one of these job sites, and with the click of a button, it will send your resume to that employer. So there's no customization of the application, so you can apply for lots of jobs in a short amount of time. Now, on the other hand, you could do a manual application. This is where you take the time, write a custom cover letter, maybe modify your resume, customize it for that particular job, and then you apply that way. Now, the custom application obviously takes a lot longer, but the benefit of doing that is you're more likely to get a response. So there's kind of this balance here. You can quick apply, you can apply for more, and it is kind of a numbers game with job applications. The more you apply for, the more likely you're going to get at least one response, right? However, it's not just about quantity, it's about quality as well. So we've got this balance between quality and quantity. And how should you manage that relationship? Well, here's what I did. For jobs which I thought there was no way I'd get it, or ones that I wasn't that interested in, I would just quick apply. However, for jobs which I was very keen on and which I was really, really interested in getting, for those I would take the time to make a custom application. Now, you may want to just do the custom applications, or you may just want to do the quick applying, and it's up to you on what you want to do, but I think it's good to have a balance of both quality and quantity. And the quick apply is not that bad, especially if you have a good resume. To literally just apply for like 20 jobs in one evening, it can really be worthwhile. However, that being said, I think we can actually speed up the cover letter writing process with ChatGPT. So this is not something I had available to me when I was applying for jobs, but I've seen careers advisors on LinkedIn posting about how they're using ChatGPT to help with writing customized cover letters. So I think this is definitely something that you should look into.
Okay, so I'm just going to show you a quick example of how we can use ChatGPT to write a custom cover letter for us. So I've just typed in exemplar bioinformatics resume into Google, and I just found this one, so I'm just going to use this as the example in this scenario, but obviously you'd use your own. So I've just said, below is my resume, job profile, write me a personalised cover letter for the job based on my resume. So here I'm just going to paste the resume and the job profile. And for the job profile, I'm just going to pick a random one. I wonder if I can just copy the whole page with Control-A. So the thing is, ChatGPT does have a limit on the amount of text you can paste in, but I'm just going to try and paste it all in to see what happens. Okay, so there we go. It's written a cover letter for us, and based on the initial paragraph, I'm very happy with that. It's quite good, isn't it? The only thing is, with cover letters, you want to have the address at the top.
As well as customizing cover letters, you can also customize your resume, ask it to critique your resume. So it's definitely a great tool to have at your disposal. Okay, so there is one more piece of advice that I'd give to you when applying for jobs, and that is to track every job that you apply for. The job hunting process can be long. It can take a few months, and the chances are, well, at least for me, you kind of forget about the jobs you've applied for previously, especially if you're applying for many. So the best way to manage this problem is to track your jobs. So what I did is I created an Excel spreadsheet where I tracked all sorts of information about the jobs I was applying for, such as the company, the position, the pay, the location, etc. And you'd also want to track the status of your application. So did you get rejected? Are you in the interview stage? Are you waiting for a response? So the way I tracked that was with a color coding system. What I also included in that spreadsheet was how I applied for the job. Did I quick apply, or did I write a custom application? And for every custom application I made, I would save the cover letter and resume that I sent to them. Because when you then get the interview offer, you want to know exactly what you sent to them so you can revise it before your interview. As I mentioned, if you want that exact Excel spreadsheet that I used, then you can just click the link in the description and I'll send it to you for free along with some resume and cover letter templates. So that's the main advice I have for you regarding job applications. Again, this process can be long and arduous. You will feel disheartened if you get rejected or if you don't hear a response, but just stick with it. You'll get there eventually. You'll get through it. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the third step, which is all about interviews. So I'm going to go over these 5 tips which I have for the interview process. So the first one is take every interview opportunity you get. So let's say you've applied for a job and they've offered you an interview, but then you've kind of changed your mind, I actually don't really want to do that. What I would say is take the interview anyway, especially at the start, because the chances are you've not had to interview for a little while. And if you've not had to interview for a little while, you're probably going to be a little bit rusty. You're probably going to be a little bit nervous. You're not going to really be comfortable in that environment. So I would say, especially early on, take every interview opportunity you get because it's really good to practice and you actually get good very quickly. So even after maybe 2 or 3 interviews, you'll kind of become very confident in that situation. So this is what happened to me. I'd say the first interview I had went pretty terribly. I was nervous. I was fumbling my words, but after probably 3 interviews, I was on it. I could recite all my answers easily, and I just felt so much more confident. It's purely through exposure to that environment, to that situation, which allows you to become more comfortable. Right, second tip is to prepare answers to common questions that you're going to get. You're always going to get the same simple questions at the start of an interview. So these could be things like, tell us about yourself, why are you interested in this position, and what are your long-term career goals? So for these types of questions, I would just write out your perfect answer that demonstrates your strengths. You'll basically just be reciting these same things every time. But this is actually a good thing because when you go into an interview, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. So if you kind of have some answers ready and they ask you those questions, it can really get the mood of the interview going and allow you to kind of be a bit more comfortable in that situation. Now, the third tip I have for you is to use ChatGPT to help you prepare for interviews. What you can do is give ChatGPT your resume and the job profile, and you can ask it to pretend to be, an interviewer or a hiring manager and ask you questions that you're likely to get in the interview. So it's a good way to kind of practice thinking on your feet and answering questions which you're not prepared for. Okay, fourth tip is always ask for feedback if you get rejected and don't burn bridges. Getting turned down doesn't feel good, and it can be hard to receive negative feedback, but I really recommend you do this because constructive criticism or feedback is what is going to allow you to improve. So they may tell you something which you can then improve on for the next time. And regarding not burning bridges, you may come across this company in the future and you want to leave a good impression. You don't want to like lash out on the hiring manager, like you're an idiot or whatever, because you may meet them again in the future and you don't want to have that bad reputation. And I think this is generally good life advice. Be able to take criticism, take feedback, and to not burn bridges. Okay, so the fifth and final tip I have for you regarding interviews is to interview them. Now, I know they're interviewing you, obviously, for the position, but you want to make sure that they are the right fit for you. Now, this is something you may not think about during the interview. You may feel like, I'm so lucky to have this opportunity to interview that you don't really think about, whether they're right for you. But later on, if you actually get the job, you want to be happy. You want to make sure that's the right fit for you. So this is something to think about early on as well. The funny thing with interviews is that you'll be applying for ages, you'll get nothing, and then they'll all come at once. Again, it's all good practice, so it's not a problem. So just to summarize this section, you want to take every interview opportunity you get, especially at the start. You want to prepare answers for the most common questions which you're likely to get in every interview. You can use ChatGPT to help you practice interviewing. You want to always ask for feedback and do not burn bridges. And finally, you want to interview them as well as them interviewing you. Okay, so before we end off this video, I'm just going to share with you 3 bonus tips which I have for the job application process. So the first one I have is to improve your skills alongside applying for jobs, in brackets, if you have time. So if you're not getting results, one of the main things you can do is increase your skill set. That way, you can boost your resume, and the more relevant skills you have, the more likely you are to get certain jobs. So this is something I did when I was applying for jobs in industry. I put in a little bit of time on the side to learn AWS, so Amazon Web Services. So I was seeing on a lot of these job profiles that they were asking for cloud computing experience, and that's the one thing I didn't have at the time. And so I literally put in maybe a month on the side of applying for jobs. I put in some time to actually learn AWS, and the goal of that was to make me a stronger candidate for these roles. And I recommend you do a similar thing if you have the time. On the jobs you're applying for, are there any skills that you're missing? If there are, and you're interested in learning those skills, then I would recommend learning those on the side. Okay, my second bonus tip is to use a recruitment agency. Now, a recruitment agency basically tries to connect individuals like us who are looking for jobs with companies that are looking for people to hire. So they're basically connecting people. Now, recruitment agencies are generally free to use. So, you'd contact them, you'd give them your CV, tell them what you're looking for, and you'll be assigned a recruiter, and they'll, try and find jobs for you, try and get you interviews. Now, this is something I did. Now, what I would say is use recruiters, but don't rely on them. So I actually signed up to a recruitment agency when I was looking for jobs, and they did get me one interview. But the thing is, they're not that quick to get you opportunities. Like, you'll be able to apply for way more jobs and get way more interviews, etc., just from applying on your own. So by all means, use them. A lot of these recruiters have connections in the industry, so they may have hired for a company before, so that if that company comes to them and asks them, do you have someone in mind that could fit this role, they can then contact you, and set up an interview quite easily. Okay, so my third and final tip for this video is to apply for jobs even if you aren't 100% qualified for those jobs. There was this Hewlett-Packard internal report that stated that women will only apply for jobs they feel 100% qualified for, whereas men would apply for jobs even if they felt only 60% qualified for. Now, what I would say is apply for jobs even if you don't have every single skill that they list on the job profile. This is because companies will often just list every single skill under the sun just so they can weed out the best candidates. So I would always apply for jobs even if I didn't have all the skills, and this has got me interviews, this has got me jobs that I've been in previously. So you don't have to have every single skill. And looking at that Hewlett-Packard report, it seems like women are less likely to apply for jobs they don't feel 100% qualified for, but this kind of goes for anyone who's in that boat. Obviously, use your common sense. Like if you've just graduated with a bachelor's, you shouldn't be applying for like a postdoc position that requires 5 years postdoc experience. Like use your common sense, but generally just be okay with not being 100% qualified for the job in terms of the skills they list. Okay, so that's it for the video. That is my whole process for preparing for jobs, applying for jobs, interviewing, and I'm hoping that can help you in your job hunt. Now, there are other ways, you can get jobs. You've probably all heard the phrase, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, which is very true. However, this is mainly for people who are cold applying, so to speak. You don't know anyone in these companies, you're just relying on the job sites and the resources that you have available to you. As I've mentioned throughout the video, if you want any of those free resources, you can just click the link in the description. But aside from that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.